Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello, and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. I've got Greg Machinery Pete Peterson on to talk about what's happening in the market. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Casey. How about you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Down here at the Moving Iron Summit, and got a full cast of characters down here talking about what's going to happen in the marketplace over the next, hopefully next 12 months. That shines a little rosy light on things, but it's going to be a dim rosy light, I think, if anything, right now, as you look at how the market's coming together. The good thing I'm hearing about it stuff so far today is that it's not going to get worse, but maybe it might not get better either. So that means we're at the bottom, right? And you and I've talked about that for basically the duration of this podcast since we've been doing it together, what that looks like. So this will be I think we're starting to see some of that happen, right? Like you talked about, we've talked about auction values, retail value, how they're coming together, getting closer and closer, and then the stability of which you're starting to see some of that older stuff, which is one of those things I track to follow that through. We're starting to see some of those things come together. I guess, Greg, as you're watching this is some of the stuff you're paying attention to right now.
In the fall, it's always interesting where, I've always thought from a data perspective, it's kind of a vulnerable time to sell equipment because everything's not in the bin yet. And there's so many questions. The trends that we've been talking about, Casey, I got more confirmation here the last few days. Folks maybe saw social media. I posted, it was a sale a week ago. It was last Tuesday, September 16th up in Mossley, Ontario. Sale was by Shackleton Auctions. Mike and the crew up there, great team. And Ontario has produced, it's very high quality used equipment up there, similar to the upper Midwest here. And they had some just gangbuster prices. It was Heartland Farms was the sale. They sort of had the type of stuff that I've been talking about that everybody wants, especially when the market's tight like this or under pressure. So, for example, a 2010 John Deere 9630 four-wheel drive, 3,144 hours. When you did the conversion into U.S. dollars, it was $255,467. Now that is $255,500 basically. That's the highest hard cash auction price, Casey, in over 12 years. In fact, you got to go all the way back to the very first auction we filmed for Machinery Pete TV show. It was in Lenox, Iowa, June 29th of 13. And they had a 10 model 9630 with 17 hours on it on that auction. Now that was in June of 13. So that market back then was just starting to kind of tip down. Corn and beans had fallen. And that brought 265. 12 years ago was 17 hours. And again, despite the challenges right now here, there's a 15-year-old pre-def 9630 ringing the bell. Same auction had a 10 model 8430. That one had 4,835 hours. And when you convert it to US dollars, it was 174,678, which is the highest auction price ever on an 8430 with over 3,600 hours. And this one had over 4,800. Also had a 15 model S680 combine. It had 2,071 engine hours on it. And without any heads, it went for $174,678 US dollars. Highest auction price this year on a S680. But again, it's 10 years old. And then for you collector vintage folks out there, listeners, they had just a sweet looking 4520 that had a Kinsey repower Detroit diesel. Double chrome stack. This thing was just like you dream about. And U.S. dollars, it went for $43,669. That's the fourth highest hard cash auction ever on a 4520. So that last one, the 4520, that's like the old money factor that I kind of watch. Land prices, how are they holding up? Better than most people thought. And this kind of these play tractors, these collector items, we're seeing solid pricing there. But again, if it's over 10 years old in good shape like this auction for Heartland Farms, you can see those strong dollars are still there. And this trend's been firming up here the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks for sure.
Yeah. And that's one of the factors I pay close attention to, Greg, is where that 7 to 10-year-old stuff and older, the good quality stuff that's out there, are you seeing a affirmation there where you're seeing, hey, prices are getting stronger, prices are getting better? that to me that's again because of the way the market is. Those are the kind of machines that folks can typically stroke a check for, or they have enough equity in a piece of equipment they can sell that they can put a lot of money down on the upgrade or whatever it might be that they're looking at, and watching those things too. And as those markets tend to get warmer, you almost get a bottom up feel in the marketplace where you start looking at, hey, this market down here is really hot and really strong, and there's nothing there that I can go, and you start bumping up to the next level of machinery, and those kind of drag the price up to that next level of machinery a little bit in some cases. As you watch this stuff come together, again, this is another one of those signals that I pay attention to that say, hey, we are at the bottom of the marketplace, and it feels like all the data we talked about so far is pointing to, hey, we're at the bottom, things are firming up, and we got really nothing but up from here.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about the auction pricing, Casey, is it doesn't give a rat's you know what. It is what it is. You put something up for sale and it boom. So when I look at S680s, for example, like we know the last couple of years the average auction price fell like a rock. But now they were made what 12 to 17, so out 8 to 13 years old now. But so far this year, I mean, the average auction price actually is up just a hair on a S680. Now, that's that footing you're talking about. And again, you're right, when you see premium, when times are tight, and I mean, this equipment was large grain equipment. There was also a 10 model 4730 sprayer, 2200 for almost 1019. I think that's the seventh highest price this year. So again, it just shows you what people want and the available dollars where they're flowing. And sort of like you mentioned there, I think there's still the rest of this year, probably into early 26, a great time if you're able for our farmer viewers out there to be aggressive, on that kind of that 3 to 7 year old stuff. Call your dealer, watch the auction market. We got a sale coming up on Friday this week. Our friends at Ritchie Brothers in their U.S. locations out of Minnesota and Kansas City have some really tons of late model equipment on this sale that I'll be watching. Stuff like a 24 model Kinsey 5700 24-row planter out of Minnesota, just down the road from me. 23 model Kloss Lexion 8600 track combine out of Missouri. Also a 20 model Kloss Axion 930 tractor out of Ohio. So it'll be interesting to see how that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old stuff sells when we're, like you say, when we're seeing this 10, 15-year-old stuff kind of really start to go up.
Yep, for sure. So, Greg, as you're kind of watching this thing take place, we're coming into that time of year where you're seeing a lot of folks tax planning, starting to happen right now, right? All the years I've followed what you do, and all the years that you've been doing this, at October through December timeframe typically is a peak. The good so far this year is shaping up to where it should continue that trend upward. As you're watching auction activity and inventory you see starting to get posted out there, Greg, how are you feeling about how this end of the year looks and as far as auction activity goes?
Well, like we've talked about, Casey, I think only twice in 24 years in Q4 used values basically go down, and that was in 2015 and last year. Now again, I think the used market, despite the pain, we know it's tough for our dealer friends. Still trying to get things exactly where they want it in terms of inventory, but I just think all that hard work they did in 2024 collectively, I mean, that gets back to that 126 to 150% increase in 0 to 3-year-old units we saw sold at auction versus a decade ago in that downturn. So I think all that work is helping. And these trends we're seeing late summer into fall through September here with the nice condition 10-plus-year-old stuff firming up, I would think it's pointing towards, I would say, at least holding in terms of Q4. The X factors would be, there's an expectation on it, checks in the mail from Uncle Sam. How big? Interest rates just fell a quarter. I don't see that in the short term being any type of magic bullet. But maybe if they drop again, and then maybe there's some kind of deal, hopefully with some of these other countries to help the beans out a little bit. So if we get any positivity there, then I think you'd be drifting into the maybe looking for that Q4 bump up again. But at worst, I think we're shaping up to kind of hold where we're at.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's nothing out there that's pointing towards, again, like I said when we started out, that a lot of the information we're getting here is that unfortunately it's not going to get any better, but fortunately it's not going to get any worse, right? You kind of have to hold that line, and that's going to be a tough line to hold for some folks.
Yeah, and it's all connected, right? So when we see this, and you said it, when this 10, 15-year-old stuff starts firming up and you start seeing kind of that double premium for this nice stuff, that can maybe firm things up, just back up the chain a little bit. And again, last year, the issue was just the sheer volume of that 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old stuff that hit the auction market from dealers. And just the amount of it, almost by definition, drove the pricing down. Now this year, the volume is way less. I think on the order of, I would say, 35 to 50% less 0 to 3-year-old units sold at auction. And I'm not seeing at this point any late season avalanche of dealers pushing stuff to auction. If I were a dealer, I'd be watching these, the auction prices, and it would make me feel a little bit more confident if our dealership had to use the auction route, as painful as it can be year end. I would think I would feel a little bit better about it just reading these tea leaves coming into October, but we'll have to see how much volume. If it stays kind of where it's been at, which is way off from last year, then I think we'll see these trends hold.
Sure, for sure. All right, last topic, Greg. I'm watching the cattle market. We've talked about that quite a bit and where that's at, and we're seeing some things there, like we talked about last week. If you're looking at some older balers and some loader tractors, those kind of things, the market strength is pointing towards, hey, there's starting to be more money spent on some of the stuff. Because if you go back 6 months, even 12 months, that market, there wasn't a lot of shoppers out there for that stuff right now, right? And we're starting to see those people come in, like we've talked about. Oh, you used to go back to like July, August timeframe. You really start to see that kind of really start to be a bigger upward projection. Look at that stuff now. I mean, it feels like that's still strong. And it feels like there's still plenty of people out there looking at auction inventory for that demand. Do you feel like there's a lot of that stuff being in the market right now?
Well, the auction prices screaming the strength of that sector, the loader tractors. So I posted just this past Saturday, my friend Mark Younger had a very small farm auction out of Rockport, Missouri. Had a real sharp 2014 Case IH, Maxim 125. I think it had that L756 loader on it, and it had 2,139 hours on it. Hard cash, it went for 72.5, which again, when you pull back and you analyze on a Maxim 125 with over 2,000 hours in a loader, that was that hard cash, that's the second highest price ever. Now, again, that's when you get into that 10-year-old stuff. But what I'm seeing with loader tractors, Casey, to your point, and I think we touched on it last week, like our friends at Purple Wave had a couple late model ones last week. They had a 21 model Deere 6155M, just under 900 hours with a loader, did 135.3, came out of Dresden, Kansas, and that was the third highest ever on a 6155M with over 500 hours at auction. They also had a T5 110 New Holland that sold real well with a loader 22 model. The loader tractors, I think, are strong at auction, whether it's a couple years old or really get hot. When you show me that one with 10 plus years old that's really been well taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. That's everything's pointing towards that, man. And again, like you talked about here, you're seeing some stuff that's getting real hot and some stuff that's starting to warm up. And some, now when I say warm up, I'm not talking like we're getting ready to see some kind of explosion here, but it's better than it was this time last year.
Yeah, and one thing too, in a market like this, I mean, especially on the grain side, it's really all about condition with the used, and so like that sale I talked about from Mossley, Ontario, Heartland Farms. Now that stuff, that stuff looked like new, and now Shackleton auction, they do an awesome job marketing, and that's what happens. You get that 9630, 15 years old, that brings over 255 US. So, if it's the right condition stuff, you can see what's happening. Now, that said, if it's average condition in a market like this, especially on the grain side, I mean, Machinery Pete's not all sunshine and rainbows there. But again, it is what it is. Uh, but when the belts are getting tightened for the length of time they've been tightened now, folks aren't buying new. It just further accentuates the demand, focuses demand on, okay, if I'm going to spend in a four-wheel drive, sprayer, combine, whatever, I want a nice one, 8, 10, 12 years old. And again, to me, the play right now is to look at that 3 to 7-year-old stuff on the lot or at auction. I think, those loader tractors on the livestock side are selling very, very high. But on the grain side, I think you can get some tremendous value on that stuff. And really, what people can't always see, now you look at the market holistically, Casey, you've always tracked the supply, how many units on categories are out there. Most people don't see that or think of that. And when I look at that, the supply, again, although our dealer friends wishes it was lower, is way, 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 way better than last year. And that is that firming, that's underneath this firming up we're talking about. So if that kind of continues to step by painful step get a little bit better, there's that footing you were talking about, I think.
For sure. All right, Greg, probably a good place to stop there. Folks want to reach out to you and get you to come speak or just check out something you got going on. The easiest way to do that, just go to Senior Pete, click on the contact page.
Yeah. Shoot an email there, or if you're on Twitter, and I can't call it X, I still call it Twitter. That's the fastest social media route to get a hold of me. Shoot me a message on Twitter. I'm in there all day. Facebook, I go through the messages there, but we get so many, they come so fast. Sometimes I can't keep up with them all, but just reach out, and happy to visit with folks.
Well, Greg, appreciate you being on the podcast. We'll catch you again next week.
All right, have fun down there, moving iron, Casey.
I will. Thanks for that. We'll catch you next time.
You bet.
Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you.
See you next year,
loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like Exact Apply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
Get the latest markets, weather, and rural news whenever it works for you. Farm Journal TV is on Roku, Fire TV, and mobile. Try it for free for 14 days and take ag with you everywhere.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Marcus, I got Sean Hackett on here from Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida. He's nice enough to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Sean, how you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing really good in a hurricane-free season so far.
So from knock on wood, right? You got a little bit to go, but we're going to go. We're going to hit on that a little bit later and talk a little bit about what that looks like and where things are headed with that. But first, Sean, let's talk a little bit about what we see happening in the marketplace. So, corn's the one thing that I've been paying close attention to. I think everyone has been just because of where it's at, and we're seeing a lot of sideways trade right now. You see plus or minus 5 cents, 10 cents here and there, type of thing. And the intraday trade too is another thing I've been watching closely, Sean. So I guess as you're looking at that marketplace, what are you seeing there? And do we just need a little help from the USDA to get that number up a little bit?
Well, we're about 10, 11% harvested as of Monday, according to the USDA. The yields have been very, very poor, but the market is used to the idea that oftentimes early harvest results can be bad, but then they get better as the harvest progresses. So I think we need to get ourselves to like 20 to 30% in the I states and it continue to see those yields coming up short for the market to start taking this lower yield idea more seriously and start putting that into higher prices for corn. That we should reach that level depending on the weather, Casey, in about 3 weeks. So somewhere in that middle to the third week of October, the I state should be at that 30% to 50% harvested zone. And I don't think the yields are going to get any better. I think they're going to continue to show this trend of disappointing related to what was expected, and in many cases, yields that are below last year. And so I think that we're in a very dynamic time where every week that goes by, and every week we get more information that's further validating what we're already seeing, the markets could start reacting. It could happen all of a sudden. One day we just wake up and we're up 20 or 30 in corn, and everybody's surprised what's going on. And the USDA will chime in their first, in their October report. They will be more aggressive in bringing those yields down. They will bring some harvest results into the mix. Will they factor it all in? No. They'll wait till January to factor it all in, but they'll at least start the process. And soybeans, I think, is the same thing. Just remember that in the last few days, Friday, Trump did not mention anything about grain purchases with his talk with Z. And many people apparently were disappointed that there were nothing discussed about them purchasing grain. So especially soybeans got hit on Friday but as a result of that. And then we got this export tax elimination on Argentine grain exports earlier in the week, and that's expected to stay in place through the end of October, seemingly giving them an upper hand on selling some grain that we won't. And then, of course, what does China do? They book 10 cargoes of soybeans out of Argentina to just make everyone feel a little bit worse about the situation. Remember, they're trying to negotiate a trade deal here in October. Bessent said he's very confident they'll have a trade deal before the November deadline. And Trump said he's going to meet with Z at the end of October at the Korea summit. So this is a negotiating tool. Why would they go in and buy all kinds of soybeans and make us feel really, really good if they're trying to negotiate the best deal that they want? They wouldn't. They'd continue to do what they're doing, making us more willing to, give them a better deal because we want them to really buy a lot of our grain. And them not doing it is at least one way for them to put a little extra pressure on us. So I think that's the game. And I'm pretty optimistic something will come from this as we get to the end of October. And obviously, I'm very, very confident soybean and corn yields will come down, crops will get smaller, and I think we'll have an ability to get some traction and get some momentum to the upside instead of two steps forward, one step back. Maybe it can be 3 or 4 steps forward, 1 step back, and get a little more acceleration here to the upside. That's what I think is going to happen. And the good news is we don't have to wait 3 months to get the answer on yields. I think we just need another 30 days to do it. So.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Let's switch over and talk a little bit about some weather forecasts and stuff like that. One of the things over the weekend, I sent you a text message about something I saw on the internet about winter forecast, and you talked about this quite a bit, that this winter, especially the northern and the northeast part of the United States, was going to have a really good opportunity to see some really heavy snow, cold temperatures, really there. And I saw something and I forwarded it to you and said, "Hey, is this kind of what you've been talking about, Sean?" And he's like, "Yes, it's this." So let's talk about the winter side of it first. But probably before we do that, let's hit the hurricane season. That was another thing you talked about early on too, was how quiet this season was going to be.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about that in 6 months, and I'm like, John, that's a bold prediction, buddy, because you're a long ways away from hurricane season. And I'll tell you what, you hit that one. And right, so far, it's been a very quiet hurricane season. The hurricanes that have been have manifest themselves have stayed out in the ocean. Not a lot of, I don't think hardly any of them have hit landfall anywhere. So as you watch where those things are moving out through the Atlantic, a couple things you talked about in that was the cool temperatures in the Atlantic, and then also the Beaufort-Gruyere system that we see up there that's dumping some reversal of that, dumping cold water in there. So all that stuff is happening now, and it's affecting hurricane season. So talk a little bit about what you see happening there.
Well, the first thing, to have an active season, you need a few things. First of all, you really need a La Nina to reduce the wind shear to allow the storms to grow unencumbered. Well, we're not in a La Nina. I mean, I know everyone says we're in a La Nina. We're really not. We're just sort of in a neutral negative phase. And so we don't have a strong La Nina reducing wind shear. The second thing is, in the main development region where the waves come off of Africa, those sea surface temperatures are dramatically colder than they were a year ago, meaning, typically storms need warm water to develop all that moisture and energy. We haven't had that this year. Thirdly, the North Atlantic, like you mentioned about the Beaufort-Gruyere reversing its spin counterclockwise, is another factor that reduces the wind, the wind that increases the wind shear and reduces the ability for these storms to grow. And on top of it, we had a very, very active Saharan dust season that makes the air, very much drier than it normally would be. And lastly, we had the Bermuda High was very, very much positioned easterly this year because of the change in the sea surface temperatures, and so the hurricanes tend to go around, around the Bermuda High, and that's why all these storms have been spinning out into the ocean because we're so far east that they're just following it around. And normally, if we're more in the center, Casey, or center west, they come right into Florida, they come into the Gulf, they come into the southeast states, and the driving force has been that they've not been doing that. And I don't think that's going to change. I think we have a flurry of a couple of more tropical systems next week, Casey, that might get close to Florida or the southeast. It doesn't look like we're going to make landfall. After that, I think that's it. I really think that's the last bit of major activity we're going to see. September 11th is the peak hurricane season, and the hurricane season pretty much ends October 15th. So long as there's no surprises with these two systems next week, I think we can check a box off and say we just had one of the lowest, what they call ACE index, which is the anticyclonic energy of cumulative hurricane strength, been the lowest since 2013, which, by the way, is the last time that we had the setup for a very cold winter. So everything is sort of kind of connected. A low hurricane season tends to translate into a much colder North American season. Where I do differ on some of the weather forecasts for the winter, Casey, like the one you mentioned to me, is standard operating procedure. If you have a La Nina, it tends to be cold northern half, warm southern half. I mean, that's kind of like a general template. But I don't think we're going to have a La Nina, Casey. I mean, right now we're like borderline weak La Nina, but by the time we get to like November to December, we're not going to be in one. We're going to be in the neutral negative phase. The Southern Oscillation Index was drives whether the cold waters are coming up or not. We've been like in it. The 30-day moving average is like +2. The more positive, the more you're likely a La Nina. It's just, I don't see anything that says we're going to have the kind of strong La Nina you would need to have to create a warm south, cold north. What we're setting up for, like we had in the winter of 2013-14, is a more neutral reading with those warm Pacific Northeast sea surface temperatures and the cold North Atlantic sea surface temperatures, without a La Nina effect. That means we're going to have a much deeper dive of the cold air into the center east of the country, meaning instead of just being cold and warm, it's going to be warm out west. There's no doubt the west is going to be on the warmer side, okay? But from the center east, that cold air is going to dive deep into the southeast, and I don't see that being I don't see it being as warm as many are calling for that deep southeast. I think it's going to be much, much colder. Remember, natural gas demand for energy is most impacted by a center east cold winter. Out west, most people that drive out there in most areas, nobody lives out there. So I can tell you when I drove through South Dakota from one side to the other, I don't think I saw a car for like 2.5 hours. So if it's minus 50 degrees in South Dakota, it does not matter to heating demand. It just doesn't matter. So I think we need to kind of, where are the people, and where are the people that are going to turn on the heat? If it's cold, it's center east, and that's what we're looking for this winter. So
okay, all right. So when you look out west right now, last time something like this happened, the higher elevations, they got snow and things looked right, but it wasn't warm below. Are you something like that you thinking, or you think it's going to be drought situation type stuff?
It's going to be droughty
lack
out
of
west.
Snowfall.
Yeah, it's going to be droughty out west. Unfortunately, it's going to be a warm winter, less snowfall. Relative. I mean, obviously the mountains are going to get snow. I'm not saying they're not going to get snow, but we're talking about the snowpack. That's so critical that when you melt that snowpack in the spring and it brings all that water in, that fills up the irrigation and all that stuff. it's going to be on the drier side. It's going to be a warmer, drier west issue, and that's going to creep. That's going to creep into the center grain states as we approach the spring and the summer. And so I think that what happens out west will not stay out west. It will migrate further in. And I think that even though this past year we had a lot of problems with warm nights, a very, very dry finish to the eastern grain belt, excessive rainfall in places like central Iowa, I think next year is going to be more your traditional dry growing season, which we did not have this year. We had let's put it this way, to August 1st, we had some decent rains in many places, including where you are, Casey, which normally you don't get a lot of rains. You had good rainfall this year. So I think next year is going to be more your traditional drought cycle. And so then the question becomes, can you get dry weather and high daytime temperatures in the I states? And that's something that we've not been able to do. We've had a lot of drought, but not a lot of high daytime temperatures. And we get them in May and June. We get it in August and September. We've not been able to really get it in the heart of the growing season. Not that I'm not rooting for bad weather for farmers. I don't want anyone to have a bad crop. But one thing that we've been following, Casey, and we've talked about this a lot, is that the Tonga effect that was created from that eruption in January of 2022, which pumped all that water vapor aerosol in the stratosphere and created this heating effect. All that water vapor has been precipitating out, and it's been causing a lot of unusual, extreme storms and flooding. I mean, all over the world, you get these crazy storms where you see rainfall that's 100-year rainfall there and 100-year rainfall there. It's really been kind of creating weather outcomes that's been hard to predict in some cases, because it's just not what we haven't had in 1,000 years. We haven't had this happen, so we don't really have anything to go by. From the measurements that NASA has been putting forth, we should be fully precipitated out and back to normal in the stratosphere by the end of the year, meaning that the Tonga effect will be over by the end of the year. We'll be back to our normal stratosphere. We won't have any more precipitation out. And I think we're going to get back to a more predictable weather pattern based upon historical teleconnections that we call. And I think that's going to give some more clarity to the Northern Hemisphere growing season this coming season than we've had in the last couple of years, where we've had a lot of very strange weather that's been very hard to predict. And so to me, it's setting up for a more traditional dry growing season coming up. And that's what we'd be expecting to see. And that's something we need to be watching, because if we finally do deliver a hot July with dry weather, the kind of, let's put it this way, Casey, if the August dryness, which in many areas was a 1 in 100-year drought, meaning the August in many places in the Eastern Grain Belt was the driest in 100 years, had that occurred in July with any kind of heat, we wouldn't be talking about yields in the upper 170s. We'd be talking about yields in the upper 150s. And we'd be talking about, where does corn need to go to ration demand? And we'd be talking about a feed crisis. We'd be talking about all these things that would come from a crop that's that short, like we had in 2012 or 1988. Interesting, Casey, the period from August 1 to September 15 was drier than 1988 in the central eastern grain belt and into Missouri. It was drier than 2012. It was the only time that we could find that we had a drier August 1st to September 15th in the central eastern grain belt and in southern grain belt was the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. It was interesting enough. Now, of course, it didn't happen in July. So we have yields coming below what it should be, but it's still a good crop because we had good moisture in July. Had that happened in July, we'd be talking about something completely different. We'd be talking about $8 corn, $9 corn, $10 corn, $12 corn, whatever the number would be. That's what we'd be talking about right now, instead of, can corn make it to the upper fours, right? So anyway, that's what I think we're heading into. That's what a cold winter and a weak hurricane season with this kind of sea surface temperature regime and the Beaufort Gyre reversing, all this is setting up for that kind of setup without the Tonga effect screwing around with conventional teleconnections. So,
Right on. Okay. All right, good stuff as usual, Sean. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information about what you're doing over at Hackett Financial. What's the best way to do that?
our website is Hackett, Hackett advisors.com. We also have a Twitter page at Faradix11. Maybe we'll post something a couple of times a month on our outlook on weather and some price forecasting in different ag markets to see if what we do and how we look at markets might be of value to those that listen and watch your great show.
Sean, I appreciate that, man. We'll catch you again next time.
Sounds great, Casey. Thanks.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a deer.
Get the latest markets, weather, and rural news whenever it works for you. Farm Journal TV is on Roku, Fire TV, and mobile. Try it for free for 14 days and take ag with you everywhere.
Welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Got Aaron Fennell back here with me, talking about what's going on in the market. But we are together at the Moving Iron Summit here in Austin, Tennessee. That's not where. Austin,
Almost.
Texas. Pretty close. Yeah.
It's
Austin,
right
Texas.
next to Nashville, Texas.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So down here in Austin for the 12th Moving Iron Summit that I've helped put together over the years. So glad to be a part of that. Aaron's down here as well, kind of seeing what's going on. Record attendance this year. We had some of the one of the biggest attendance we had at 79 different dealer groups show up. About 142 people come through from all different aspects of the business, whether you're talking John Deere, Case IH, AGCO, wherever. They're all from all over the place. So really cool opportunity to get everyone together and see what's happening. The one thing I was not expecting when I got here was 98 degrees. Right. And I can't believe how hot it is.
Were you,
right now.
you thought NSYNC or Backstreet was going to be here instead?
I was
or
more looking forward to that, but
I land in Austin and here's Nick Lachey. Now what?
But it's been a fun first day. We kind of looked at a few things. We had a couple different panels come up, but obviously we had an economist panel come up, talk different parts from the economy. And my biggest takeaway from that was it's not, there's not a whole lot of things on the horizon that point to things getting overwhelmingly better.
Right.
But there's nothing on the horizon pointing to things that get overwhelmingly worse.
No, it's kind of like enjoy the rut.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Like it could be worse,
right?
But it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not going to or shouldn't. And this is the remember the COVID speech,
right?
The new normal.
The new normal. Yeah.
This is the new normal. This is our and they referenced that a couple times.
Yeah.
This is our 2018-19.
Right.
Barring a pandemic in 27.
Right.
But nobody eat a bat.
Yeah. That's one thing that we've talked about too on here quite a bit is that we've kind of entered back into that time. We've talked about 2018, 2017,
right?
What that felt like coming out of 14, 15, 16, 17, right? That's kind of where we're at.
Same administration, same trade policies.
That's right. Shocker, right? So you have, as you kind of work your way through this and we're seeing what's going on, the one thing that I will say, there's a lot of things. So there's three things I really track when I'm watching these marketplaces, right?
Right.
We come into a downturn. The first thing is what's the ratio between retail pricing versus auction pricing, right? So if you go out to whatever.com and you find the same tractor you're looking for and it's priced at $100,000, what's that machine selling for at auction?
But your first choice is machinerepeat.com.
Machinerepeat.com, right? And if you're looking through there and you're looking for that stuff, I want that ratio to be somewhere close to 120%, right? So retail value is 120% of auction value, right? Well, if you go back and look at 23 and 24, those numbers were so skewed, it wasn't even remotely close.
And in 21 and 22, it was the other way.
It was the other way around, 100%. And So if you're watching how that market went, there were some times where retail value might be. There were some studies I was showing where combines, for example, were 225% on average above auction value, right?
Right.
Well, that's come way down right now. I think now we're close to that 150-ish mark, kind of working our way back through that. So that's the first thing I want to do. I want to get that as close to 120% as I can get it, right? And that's that measures where that's at. And the thing about that is that retail number gets further away from the auction value. It drives more people to the auction, and it actually drives the auction value down.
Yes.
So as you watch that thing is going now, when the retail value starts to come down, it get closer to that 120%. Auction values start to come up, and those retail values start to get more solid. And also the auction value gets more solid too. So that you see more people going back to the retail side because they're saying, all right, my dealership's worth this much, right? I'm willing to do these things.
The closer that percent gets to even, the stronger that number is on the retail side.
Yep.
Or the dealer side.
Yep.
Because you don't have this big gap. So you take the argument out of, well, I can go to auction.
Right.
I know, that sign, whether it's New Holland, Case, Deere, whatever, in front of your dealership, Gleaner, Agco, that sign's worth quite a bit. And when we get that percent shrunk down to what's healthy.
Right.
Okay. And healthy now isn't what healthy was 10 years ago.
It was not.
So the closer and tighter we get that number, it gives the dealers, us dealers, and even the buyer, that things are foundational,
right?
For lack of a better word. Everything's legit. Everything has a process, and it's not, well, the new ones are this,
right?
It's literally fundamental basis that lines all that up.
Yep, for sure.
It's a whole different. It's
a whole different.
Without making, the prices of 23, 22, whatever seem not legit. When that percentage is normal and realized, that is the most legit market in all aspects, auction, private party, dealer,
sure,
that we can possibly have.
Yep, 100%. So the other thing that I pay close attention to is the supply of machines that come on the marketplace, right? And you're in a downturn, and you're coming into a downturn, there's still this, well, we've got to do it again thing, right?
Right.
Like we know it's bad, but we can't rip that Band-Aid off yet. We got to go through one more trade cycle. Well, that one more trade cycle means that you have about anywhere from 6 to 18 months worth of machines coming in. It's all about when machine you come in. If I order a new one today, how long is it going to be here? Is it here in 6 months? Is it here in 9 months? Is it here in 12 months or whatever it is? And by the time if it's here in 6 months, by the time it gets through the shop and freight and setup and all that, all the stuff that comes through that, you're adding 30 to 45 days to either side of that, right? So if you have a 6-month delivery time, more than likely it's going to be anywhere between 7 and 8 months before that actually gets out to the farm and you bring that trade in.
Absolutely.
Right? So depending on all about those schedules. What you see happening now is that the amount of new that's being ordered is shrunk way down, right? There's only certain guys that are buying new stuff, and those are your big, massive roll guys that are out doing it every year, because the way it's set up with them, it just happens.
Yep,
it's the only way. I can't explain it any further than that. It just, no matter what, it's going to happen, right? So as those things come through,
well, and just a real quick side note to that, I kind of think when the largest rolls are still going, and corn's not $7 anymore, so we're not rolling.
Right.
Those guys quit doing that.
Right.
That is also about the healthiest market.
Sure.
I, as completely, utterly use-minded, I know we got to get it from somewhere, and that starts new, but if only you could just dig up a used tractor, and there it is. Go for it. When, from that used mindset of mine, I hate to say it. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. I really feel like we are really close let me back up a minute. A lot of dealers are realizing the new normal. Back to my earlier comment.
Right. Yep.
Wholesalers, buyers, producers, everybody's kind of realizing the new normal. and we're slowly getting that percent that we just referenced back in, I think we're really close to, dare say, healthy market.
Okay, so
that's from the transactional process.
Yeah.
The numbers are still really bad.
Right.
The body count.
Well, yeah,
machine count,
yeah.
and it's not how many, it's what they are.
That's how much.
Right.
That's what it is.
We've talked for the last 5 years. A combine problem used to be you had 20,
right,
and they're all 125.
Right.
Now you have 5.
Yeah.
Because they're all 550 plus.
Right. So I think one side of that too is kind of what Aaron was talking to, is when I say that all those roll guys are going to do what they're going to do, regardless of what happens. It just happens that way. But one of the most important things you can remember is that once a machine is sold new, and there's a life cycle for that machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from day one to day it hits the scrapyard or out on the hedgerow or wherever it's at, right? Once it goes from here to here, there's so many buyers that are along that chain, right?
Right.
And you can't skip a buyer, right? You can't skip the first used buyer. Get a new one comes in on trade. You can't skip the first trade
in a healthy
and
world.
somehow get down to the third trade, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? So you have all these different facets that come into play. So what you see on these kind of things, like what Aaron was talking about, as you watch these cycles come through, you are seeing a true, the box that people live in, excuse me, the box that people live in is very solidified right now, right? I mean, no one's jumping out of the box to go do something crazy right now, right?
Right.
So if you're a 1 to 2 or 3 year old used buyer, that's your box. You're going to stay in that box no matter what. You can't go buy a new one, but you're sure hell not going backwards, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing with that 3 to 5 year guy, and it's the same thing with the 6 to 10 year guy, so on and so forth down the way. You're only going up the chain. You're not going backwards, right? So as you watch supply come in the role, you start looking at, okay, how many 1 to 2 year old machines coming on the market right now? How many 3 to 5, so on and so forth, as you look down that chain. And what you start looking for is that flattening? Is it going down? Is it going up? What's it going on? As soon as it starts to flatten, it usually takes about 3 months of basically flat inventory levels.
Right.
And then you start seeing it go down. And the reason for that it's going down, it means that there's not enough new equipment being sold to replace the amount of equipment that's being sold off. So maybe now you're taking in one trade-in and the marketplace shows up, and there might be 1.5 or 2 trade-ins leaving the market space, right?
Right.
And that's what we're starting to see happen now, right? So that's the second thing I follow. And then what's that chain look like, right? How many 1 to 2 year old buyers are in the market right now? How many 3 to 5, so on and so forth? And what does that machine population look like, and measuring that? And then watching those things as they come through. Is it they trending up, down, or going sideways, right? That's what you're trying to do.
Right. And we've talked about this recently too, Casey. There's a lot of guys that bought that 1 year old $200 tractor that bought 3 new ones.
Yep.
So did this guy, and we lost 1, if not 2 notches
buyers
in the ladder.
Yeah.
Right.
The first level buyer.
Okay. Now it's been long enough. We have him back.
Right.
That's your used 24 buyer.
Right.
Because now he's back to, I am not giving $800,000 for a new tractor. I'll go back to my normal deal.
Well, they're going to get $500,000 trade difference.
Well, yeah,
that's what the conversation is, right?
That's exactly right. The trade difference is what drives that decision.
Right.
If he could still roll that, heck yeah, let's do it.
That's a fun conversation when somebody says the trade difference that you want me to give you for this is more than I paid for the machine I'm trading in with.
Right.
By about $100,000.
And we live in that world.
Yeah.
Fairly regularly with combines right now.
Yep.
If you get to 10-year-old combine, some 5-year-old combines, you're in that ballpark, and that is a lot of. You learn some selling tactics. Yeah, maybe how I would put that.
Yep. But I think the other side of that too is understand what that chain looks like. So that's the second thing, right? What is the supply doing, and what's demand look like coming in? Even though right now we're in a very stagnant market because supply and demand, if you look at supply is going down, but supply is going down, economics 101, that means demand should be going up and prices should be going up. but it's not. It's staying flat. Pricing is staying flat, right? Which means that we're getting to that equilibrium that we need to get to. So supply is coming down, catching up with demand, the pricing characteristics that are there, and those things are coming together, right? The third thing I pay attention to, and it took me, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it dawned on me the other day after watching this stuff, how much I paid attention to this, but never clicked in my head what I was paying attention to.
Okay.
Right? When you start watching machinery that is, I would say, not 5-year-old, but like older than 5 years old, like 7 to 10-year-old, 12-year-old stuff, especially tractors that were kind of, they were just kind of there to start with, but now they're like, people are fighting over them.
Yeah.
And they're if you're asking $125,000 for it, they're going to give you $125,000 for it. And then people can't, just like they cannot get it fast enough. I used to always attribute that to, well, it's a pre-def machine, I get it, it's blah, blah. But what's driving that thing is I've got $100,000
right
in the machine that I'm trading in. You want $150 for that one? The banker's going to let me either finance the other $50,000, or I got $50,000 in cash, or $25,000 in cash, or something like that. I've got just enough money scraped together that I can pretty much replace the debt that I had with debt on a new tractor. Right? If not, get a whole different situation. Collateral swap for a different thing I have. But as those machines start to take off and run, you watch auction values on 150 horsepower tractors, they're through the roof right now. I watched a baler sell the other day that had, it was a 2011 569 baler with 3,500 bells on it, really low bell count, but it brought $35,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it didn't cost $35,000 when it was new.
Right.
Right. But again, you can say, oh, the new one costs $75,000. You know what I mean? But
there's and this is, the boots on the ground point of view to your comment, Casey. And it goes along for the first time. Would you say the 13th annual? This is 12th annual.
Yeah.
So
really, you got to take COVID out in order to be.
Oh, right. I still thought it was like 15, 18, something like that. It's like 25th annual. For the first time, we had a farmer panel.
Yep.
And what do you want from your dealers? And we had a new roll guy, a very open to rainbow decisions kind of guy, and this is exactly what I want, year-old, these specs, that guy, and kind of a blend of it all out of 4 guys. And the one said, his comment made everybody kind of giggle, but it solidifies your comment. That's great that has all that stuff in it. I don't actually need all that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff is why it costs that.
Right.
This one here is the same engine, transmission, axle, rear end.
Yep.
It'll still HID, still leather, good enough.
Yep.
And that's what's driving that is we've pushed the fancy envelope possibly too far.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's to some extent, but even
a little bit. There's definitely a step back.
Or yeah. But the thing about it too is
but not on combines.
Not on combines.
Not on combines. They're still chasing every bit of tech on a combine.
I think when I look at this, the thing that I've noticed about this over the years is that when that pool of older tractors, higher hour tractors, they're nice, clean machines. They look good. They, everything about them's fine. Is that when those machines start to becoming scarce, what that does is it takes that next level up machine and starts driving price up on that.
Right.
And you start seeing those things so it's kind of there's a little bit of a downward up movement in pricing a little bit. Now, Ed doesn't kick it all the way to the top. All it does is it takes it, you get to that next rung on the ladder.
Right.
And that's kind of where it stops. But to me, that's the first thing that I notice is that.
Which in today's market means it's not falling out of bed anymore.
Right.
It's just locked in.
The thing about that, when that happens, and that's when I started judging all these years, and I finally clicked in my head just the other day that when you start watching these things move through the marketplace like that, that's when you are, for lack of a better term, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
Right. And this is what people can afford. This is what they're going to move forward with. The guys that are going to buy that late model low hour stuff are sitting back on the fence right now that are used buyers, unless they have some kind of a roll pattern set up on a 1-year-old stuff. But most of those guys are sitting back on the field right now going like, you know what, we're just going to run this for 1 more year and see what happens, right? We'll make that decision this time next year, right? Well, what that does is that just takes a whole nother person out of if you made that decision today, and you're going to wait to see what next year looks like.
Yeah.
You're 18 months out before that person's coming to the table again to buy something.
For sure.
Right? Because they're going to go through all this rest of this year, all of next cropping year, and they're going to come start talking to you in March about something they're thinking about buying in July or August.
Right.
Right. So you have that whole time frame there. What I'm saying with this 7 to 10 or older model tractor stuff, what I'm saying there is those decisions are made a hell of a lot more rapid than that what I just laid out. That customer is coming to the table saying, well, that's exactly what I want. It's got the hour range I'm looking for. It's the genre of the tractor that I'm looking for.
Right.
And I'm going to make that decision in the next 3 or 4 days because I don't want somebody else to come in and get that.
Exactly.
Right. Now, once they've made the machine decision, that customer is probably out of the marketplace for the next 3 to 5 years.
For sure.
In
this market.
In this marketplace, right? Now, as soon as things pick back up, they're going to bring that tractor back in. They're going to come back in, and when they want to go buy, I'm typically during this bad time, a 7 to 10 year buyer, right? Things come back in. Okay, I'm going to start looking at that 3 to 5 year old stuff. I want to get back.
Everybody jumps a box.
I want to get back in that 3,500 hour tractor instead of the 7,000 hour tractor, and I want to be able to run it to 7,000 hours type of thing, right? That's what you start seeing. So when I see those 3 things happen, that tells me that we've been in a bottom, right? So we've got retail to auction value starts to shrink, right? That gap gets closed down, and we're seeing that happen a lot. We're seeing that been cut in half in some places. Still got a long ways to go, but we're coming down to that where it needs to be at. The second side of that is supply and demand ratio, where that looks at, and if you watch where supply's at now, like I said earlier, watch where supply's at now, it's flattening out, and it's starting to trend down. Now, that's not to say that you won't see it bounce along the bottom like this. In 1 month, there's 5,000 tractors on the marketplace, and next month there's 5,200, and the next month there's 4,800. Then it jumps back up to 5,300. That to me is just that's just business, right? That's now what I'm talking about. When you see stuff really slide down, it's like it goes from 5,000 to 4,500, and to 4,200, and then 4,000, and or the flip side of that when things that really start out bad. It goes from 5,000 to 5,500 to 6,500 to 7,000, right? Because that's what we're seeing, but we're not seeing that. So you're just seeing this kind of bounce along the bottom thing.
Yep.
Across the board. So that, again, another sign that we're at the bottom. And lastly, what I just talked about is those older model tractors. People are really, really gravitating towards them, and it all has to do with the equity they have in the machine they're trading in. But they might be getting the exact same tractor.
Exactly.
You might have a guy be looking for an 8530. He's got an 8530 with 7,000 hours on it. He found another 8530 with 4,000 hours on it. He doesn't feel comfortable with the 7,000 hour tractor anymore, but he's got good equity position, so he just trades hours.
Oh yeah. If you look at the Deere 8R series, 8XXXR series, the third one, 14 to 20.
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite a while.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of guys that have 14, 15, 370s that have bought 19, 20 370s. Virtually the same thing. That guy in a normal market jumps to that 21, 22 entry level 8R series, but he's not, back to your point, because the dollars, it's not what I want. It's what can I afford? Right. What can we digest and still be here next year?
Right. Exactly.
And with the way everything is financially in ag right now, that's it.
Yeah.
What you want doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at. Now, that's not to be said. I talk to guys all the time that could go buy whatever they want all day, every day. Okay. They're there. They exist. They're not me. They're not him. They exist. Yeah. And those guys didn't get there by accident.
Right.
They're the first ones who go, whoa.
They pull back quick.
Yes.
Those guys do.
Yes. The ones with the cream cans in the backyard, they know they're there. They got there for a reason.
Yep.
We're going to make sure they stay there.
Right. Yep.
It's kind of, it goes back to 2 things we've talked about throughout the year. One, there is no amount of money to buy a calf.
Right. Ain't that the truth?
And
Gold bar with 4 legs and a tail.
And what's one of the most stagnant product groups currently?
Yeah, dude, the loader tractor.
The tractor they buy. You know why? They want to be there in 10 years when it doesn't rain, and they, you know.
Well, another thing too.
Who knows what else happens?
So think about this. When I first started doing this, I remember looking at stuff, and it was, every year some university puts out there, all right, Mr. Farmer, rank the 10 things that you're going to buy this year and rank them in order. When I first started, the first 2 things were, land, equipment. Then you were like, all right, fertilizer, going to buy down, debt and this kind of stuff. Well, now if you start looking at that same thing, it's
inputs.
It's
first.
It's like debt, inputs,
debt,
chemicals, blah, 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 blah. And then like 6 or 7 down is equipment.
Right. Maybe some oil filters.
But all that stuff's changed so much that the way people look at equipment and the way they buy equipment is totally changed. And this was long before the price of equipment tripled, right?
Yeah.
This is, I mean, if you go back and look at 18, 19, 20 time frame, I mean, every year that I've been doing this, equipment's just been working its way down on the list.
Well, go back to the biggest fall that you've been part of. I got in right at the very end of that grotesque 90s, early 2000s. Somebody please pay something for corn, period. And the harshest that we've both been a part of was that.
Mm-hmm.
What fueled 18 and 19 and all that? Yep. The collapse after 12, 13.
Right.
Yep. How bad 14, 15, everybody come get your $10,000 24-row planter because there's 8 of them every Wednesday.
Right.
That era. Yep. So, and to think that was, 13 was still kind of good. We were getting you get to the end of 13 and all right, everybody buckle down. So then you have 14, 15, 16, 17, slight tick, 18, a good, healthy, normal market, 19, some progress, and then all hell breaks loose and everybody loses their minds. Yep. But it's 5 years, okay? We are, I would call the current start of the cliff fall of 23.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where are we at? We're 2 years now from when this happened. We've talked about this for 2 years.
Yep.
And we are just now getting to where it's not pitch black in that tunnel.
Right.
The slightest flicker of light. It's a process.
You're not sliding down a dark tunnel anymore.
Right.
It's when you still, I don't think you're even sliding anymore, but you're coasting across the flat.
Right.
The flat space.
You're at a place now where, and if you're slightly willing to do the right thing and keep things healthy, which means if you got old overpriced stuff, you got to do something with it.
Right.
I get that new production is down and that's going to help some used, and it will. It will, but it maybe not to the level that some guys hope. And that's where I think we preach about this constantly, and it's proactivity. You can still be completely this might be a ridiculous statement, but in my mind, I think you can be completely reactionary, yet still completely proactive.
Yes.
Because as you have said at almost every moving iron, until somebody gives you that crystal ball, it's a guess.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's a very researched, analyzed. Yeah. Nobody is more analytical than you. They just love numbers. I mean, the research is there and stuff, but until it is, spoke with God today, and 3 years from now, here's what's going to happen.
You let me know it's almost over.
Yeah.
All right, good place to stop.
Going to be a drought in Brazil next year.
It's going to be a drought in Brazil. It's going to be wet everywhere else.
Bumper crop. Yep. Right. But just ever so slightly. Only every 7 days. So you can get planted, and then get a shower,
perfect.
Get out there and spray, and then get a shower.
All right, good place to stop. Aaron, folks want some hot deals off of your High Plains wholesale thing. What's the best way to do that?
Well, you can catch me on High Plains Wholesale, which we have a Facebook page and a TikTok. I don't think that's a page on TikTok. TikTok account, something?
Call it a
TikTok presence.
You got a tick on TikTok.
A TikTok presence. I also shared on my own socials on Facebook and X, which is under my name, Aaron Fantail. You can call me or text me, 308-760-1193 anytime.
Right on. And Casey Seymour, you can find this podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we're on TikTok.
YouTube.
Yeah, just one more out there. However, there's another one out there someplace too. Just go to your favorite social media place and either look at Moving Iron LLC or Moving Iron Podcast. You can watch the video version of this on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, and check that out over there. You can also listen to it on AgWeb under podcast section. They have a section you can go listen to that too. I want to thank Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson, Sean Hackett, and Aaron Fennell for being on the podcast this week, and we look forward to doing it again next. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Aaron Fennell. Let's go, folks. Out.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.